Welcome back. Let's take a look again at our interface. So we can go to the dashboard right away by clicking Codecademy at the top, or right down here at the bottom, you'll see that we have a table of contents. So the next section we want to move on to is operators, but before we do that, okay, let's go back to our dashboard. I'm going to click Codecademy just so you can see everything there and what we've completed so far. Okay, so we've completed about 35% of the course. This is the course we're working on right now, Learn How to Code. And you can just, of course, click Start to continue where you left off. But again, I recommend you click right here on the title, so that you can see everything, all the different parts inside it. So we're still in part 1 of programming. We've taken a look at variables. Variables are boxes, containers. We put things inside them. And we classify the content of those boxes. We give them data types. So what are we putting inside a variable or inside a box? We could put a number. We could put some strings, symbols, and text, or we can put a true-false value. So those are our three data types. Let's look at operators now. Operators are actions that we perform on data types. So let's go there and take a quick look at this together. Okay, so I am going to return right to the beginning, to the introduction. So they provide you some examples of operations. So straightforward operations like adding or subtracting. We'll go on to next. All right. And we can do a bunch of calculations on this website here. They give you some examples and instructions. So let's add, and then we set a number, 3, and then we calculate, and we have 3, and then we're going to multiply that by, let's say, 4, and I think 3 times 4 gives us 12. So there's no mystery with that particular assignment. At any point, if you're stuck on any of these assignments, you're not sure how the interface works, or you're not sure what the instructions are asking of you, just send me an email and I will respond as quickly as I can. Let's go to next. Okay, now operators don't just simply add and subtract and multiply, but they can also be used to make comparisons. So if we scroll down to the instructions section here, okay, they give us instructions for making comparisons. So let's take a look here. Okay, so balance a fruit salad. Okay, so a recipe that calls for the same number of fruit. Well, 3 apples and 3 oranges, they have to be equal. So let's click the drop-down menu, and we see this funny symbol here. If you look at it carefully, it's 2 equal signs put together. Okay, that's an operator. So let's go ahead and select that. And what that is doing right now is it's comparing. It's comparing the number of apples to the number of oranges, and it's stating that they are equal. And in order to do that comparison, we don't do 1 equal sign, we do 2. So that's a little bit confusing. I think the other 2 will be a little bit easier. So in this case, a recipe that calls for 3 apples and 5 oranges. So we can see here the number of apples is less than the number of oranges. So the symbol for less than is right here. And we can see here the number of apples is greater than the number of oranges. So the symbol for greater than is right there. So let's quickly review this here. So when we're doing a comparison, okay, So we're saying, you know, the number of apples and the number of oranges are equal. Okay, we're comparing the two. We use equal sign 2 times. But if the number of apples is less than the number of oranges, okay, we use that arrow right there. And of course, if the number of apples is greater than the number of oranges. Okay, now if you want a trick to remember which way the arrow has to point, well, think of it like this. You have one thing pointing to the apple and 2 ends here pointing to the oranges. Okay, so on the greater than symbol, the point or 1 point goes to the apple and 2 points go to the oranges. So this must be less than. So the number of apples is less than the number of oranges. In the next example, we see 2 points pointing towards the apple and 1 point towards the orange. That would be greater than. So that's one trick to remember it if that's something you're not too familiar with. Let's go on to the next example here. So here, using operators to get different outcomes. So let's quickly look at the instructions here. Okay, so a recipe that includes both types of fruit. Okay, so here's another type of operator, and, or not. Now, if you want both apples and oranges, then the operator is AND. In this case, a recipe includes apples. Okay, so I believe it is a recipe that includes apples. I think it would just be not. Okay, so you have apples only, but no oranges, so you're putting a not beside the oranges. And then finally, a recipe that uses either one. You can use either apples or oranges, okay? So that would be the OR operator. So that gives us 3 more operators that we can use, okay? So that is AND, OR, and NOT. Okay, so I'm going to quickly summarize them here for you. You can have same amount, equal, greater than, or less than. And of course, the first operators we looked at are simply the operations we're familiar with from math: plus, minus, multiply. Now, multiply, we're going to be using a star, and divide would be that symbol right there. So these are usual math operators, and these are operators to compare things, and the AND, OR, and NOT operators. So that is a review of the operators we did in this section so far. And then finally, we're going to put it all together. So here's a program. You follow the instructions, and then you click the Run button. So we see here, create an apple variable and set it equal to 1. So this is called a variable assignment. The variable is apple. The data we're putting in it is the number 1, and the data type is obviously number. And now we're going to change the value. We're going to increase it. And this isn't too hard here. Look what we're doing here. Let's read it and see if we can understand what it's saying. Apple equals whatever it was before. Well, what was it before? It was 1 apple. Okay, and now we're going to add 2 more. Okay, let me repeat that again. Apple is going to have a new value. It's going to be whatever it was before. What was it before? It was 1, and we're going to add 2 more. So 1 plus 2 is 3, and sure enough, you have 1, 2, 3 apples. Now they want us to do the same thing with oranges. So let's go ahead and create an orange variable, and we're going to give it a value of 4. There are 4 oranges. Now we need to decrease the number of oranges from 4 to 2. So that means we have to subtract 2 oranges. So this is how you read it. Orange equals whatever it was before. Before it was 4, but instead of writing 4, what we're going to write is orange, because variables are in the computer's memory. When the computer sees orange, it's going to go back to see what its existing value is. And what do we want to do? We want to take away 2 of them. So let's go ahead and click Run. And you can see here on our diagram, maybe I need to zoom out a little bit. You can see here that we have 2 apples. And we can play around with this. We can say 6 apples or 6 oranges minus 3, and by all means experiment and see what the results are. And you can see here that all the oranges have disappeared. I think they need us to do it exactly the right way. So we'll say 4, subtract 2 oranges. We'll click Run again. And there it is. There are the 2 oranges. So let's go ahead and click Next. And here is a review of everything we did. And then we can start our quiz on the operators. If you have any difficulty with any of this, I think there's 5 questions, please call me and please send me an email and we'll go through it together. There is nothing to submit at this point. And when you're done, you want to verify your progress. Just click Codecademy. And you will see how much progress that you've made, and you'll be able to go on to the next lesson. And I think we will be pretty much finished with programming 1, and that will take us to programming 2. So your next video will be on programming part 2.